Big breaking news in Chula Vista, California. Maya Miliete, mother of three, missing since January. Tonight, her husband, Larry Miliete, under arrest and charged with her murder. We have the latest.
You know, for about a year, kind of like been up and down and stuff like that. But after that, you know, I give her space.
In Brunswick, Georgia, day 2 of the killing of Ahmaud Arbery murder trial. 3 men facing life in prison for chasing down Arbery in their pickup trucks and then fatally shooting him. Court TV cameras in the courtroom, and we are live from Glenn County with the latest.
The pace of jury selection inside the Glenn County, Georgia courthouse is changing. Today, prosecutors asked to clear an entire pool of potential jurors, all because of the military background of one of the defendants. We'll have the details.
In Northport, Florida, the search for Brian Laundrie continues, but who is he? Tonight, we create a profile of the man who has eluded the FBI for more than a month.
You don't take any medications or anything like that? Are you normally just kind of like hyper?
Do I see my heart rate up whenever the lights flash on, it gets your heart rate up.
In the low country of South Carolina, the Murdaugh family murder mystery continues as prominent attorney Alec Murdaugh is back in court and locked up without bond. We'll show you what happened.
I observed for the non-bond episode and required Mr. Murdaugh to undergo a psychiatric evaluation.
On the docket tonight in Brooklyn Center, Minnesota, the shooting death of Dante Wright. Tonight, we take a closer look at what happened when former officer Kim Potter yelled taser, but fired her service weapon. In Flagler County, Florida, officers arrive at a house fire before firefighters and save a 3-year-old boy. We take a look at the body cam footage with our law enforcement experts.
Where's your mommy?
I want my mom.
Where's your mommy? Come with me.
Okay.
Come with me. Come with me.
In Los Angeles, California, a fatal hit and run, and now investigators looking for the public's help in finding the suspects. We take a look during crime time. Plus, Brian Laundrie's family being harassed by protesters reminds us a lot of what happened to George and Cindy Anthony 13 years ago in Orlando, Florida. Tonight's 13th juror question: what would you do if your child was being investigated in a murder case? Go to our Facebook pages and let us know. I'm Vinny Politan. Welcome to Closing Arguments. We begin tonight with big, I mean big breaking news out of Chula Vista, California. It's a story, a case, a mystery we've been covering since January. And tonight, a huge development. It's the case involving this couple, Larry and Maya, also known as May Miliete, high school sweethearts. She went missing January 7th of this year. Then Larry all of a sudden cut off her family from visiting their children. He lawyered up. Well, today, a whole different scene. Maya's never been found. But this was the scene at his house today as investigators and the marshals and everyone else showed up to arrest Larry Miliete and charge him with the murder of his wife, Maya. This is a big, big development in this case, in this story. We've had Maya's family on here countless times, Maya's sister and brother-in-law, and there were some nights where they just seemed lost and broken. But tonight they're getting some answers and some sense of justice. It's the first step. Remember, Maya's body still has not been recovered. But this is a big step. When you lose a loved one, you're never going to get closure. All you can do is hope that the questions are answered and that someone is held responsible. This is a step in that direction. Let's take a listen. This just happened moments ago. Let's take a listen to the chief of police and the district attorney from out in California.
On Monday, October 18th, yesterday, my office filed a criminal case in San Diego County Superior Court charging Larry Miliete with the murder of May. Following his arrest today, the defendant was booked into jail and is being held without bail. He is scheduled to be arraigned this Thursday at 1:30 in the afternoon at the South Bay Courthouse. As we make this announcement, I know the hearts of the community are broken, as are the hearts of May's family. I wish we had better news for them. The only thing that we can do in the face of this senseless violence is to bring justice. I'm going to provide a brief synopsis of the evidence. Understand that a lot of the evidence cannot be shared. It will be shared in the courtroom. However, there is an unsealed portion of the arrest warrants that includes evidence that would not compromise additional investigation. This case, the investigation in this case, while we know that Larry Miliete is responsible for the murder, is ongoing, and bringing May home to have a proper burial for her family is ongoing. So what you will get is the things that will not compromise a jury trial. We are hopeful that now is the time that you come forward if you have any information. We also know more facts now that might help somebody who saw the vehicle that we believe was the transport vehicle that was used to dispose of May's body, to search their memories and understand from what I'm going to describe that there is no specific location and that the radius may be very vast and large. So it can be someone in the county, somebody outside our county. That's why we appreciate the media attention that hopefully will allow someone to see this and think, I did see a Lexus pulled off the road somewhere on January 8th of 2021. May wanted a divorce for many reasons. Her husband, Larry, did not want the divorce. Larry was trying to hold on to May, and he resorted to contacting what are called spellcasters. I've never had a case where that was involved. These spellcasters would be asked to make May want to stay in the relationship. But as December of 2020 came, those messages to spellcasters were a lot more threatening. He was asking for May to become incapacitated, for May to be in an accident, to have broken bones so that she could stay at home, thus displaying his homicidal ideations to harm May. Now we go to November 8th. Security video retained by Chula Vista PD showed the defendant on January 8th at 5:58 a.m. in the morning moving his Lexus GX460, a black Lexus, with the license plate that bears the name Melani. The Lexus was already backed into the driveway, but Larry Miliete repositioned that Lexus where the back of the Lexus is in the entrance of that garage. He repositioned it where no video camera can capture whether a body was put in the back of the Lexus or not. Larry leaves, and he does not return to the house for 11 hours and 21 minutes. He leaves his phone behind so that there is no ability to track the GPS or location on the phone. He takes his 4-year-old and leaves the 2 older children at home. If you saw that vehicle anytime on January 8th, please call and report that information.
We're going to play the whole thing for you a little bit later on in the program, but a lot of information coming out during all of this. The big headline, though, Larry Miliete now charged with murder. Thursday, he'll be arraigned formally in court. And we may learn some more about Larry Miliete. We'll get to see what he looks like because he's been hiding. He's been staying out of sight and staying away from Maya's family, obviously. Okay, let's bring in our think tank tonight and break down some of the things that we're learning. Joining us tonight in Atlanta, Georgia, criminal defense attorney Michael Bixon, in Seattle, Washington, trial attorney Ann Bremner, and in Atlanta, Georgia, criminal defense attorney, former federal prosecutor and law professor at Texas Southern University, Michael Sterling. Great to see everyone. Let's start with the motive, okay? It's old-fashioned. As a husband and a wife, she wants out. And on the 7th, the last phone call she makes, Michael Bixon, the last phone call she ever makes is to a divorce attorney. To me, that's powerful evidence.
Yeah, and it's also heartbreaking to see that, the relationship, the way that it should have ended versus the way that it appears it ended, especially when she's already, reaching out, making appointments to these attorneys. And not only that, but there were all these signs leading up to it that, the family saw and that everyone else has seen now that it's out sort of in the public. And it's sort of, obviously it's disturbing to see that she was so close to ending this relationship. And unfortunately, it didn't seem to work out the way that she wanted.
And Bremner, one strange, bizarre, twisted fact that came out was that he was contacting spellcasters. I guess spellcasters are people who cast spells on other humans. And he was contacting these spellcasters first to try to get her to change her mind. But then when he realized her mind was not going to change and she was going to leave him, trying to get them to cast a spell on her so she would break her bones. She couldn't walk. She'd be incapacitated. It's like a scene from the movie Misery where she's going to have to stay in that home because Larry doesn't want to lose May.
Right. It's like that song, I put a spell on you because you're mine. I mean, that's what he wanted. And then he just progresses to homicide from wanting to hurt her through these spellcasters and then homicide. I was contacted on behalf, either it was her family or friends or both, back when this happened, asking if I would help get this case into the media because I had the Susan Cox Powell case. And I'm so glad to see this ending now after all the angst that this family's been through. And the lack of information. I mean, she just disappeared, just vanished, into thin air. And it sounds like they built a good case, especially with the spellcaster information. Like the prosecutor said, I've never had a case with this kind of evidence. Well, I don't think any of us have.
All right, there's some circumstantial evidence here, Michael Sterling. I want you to give me an idea of how strong or persuasive you think it could potentially be. This is stuff that they released publicly as part of the arrest warrant. They've got security video at 5:58 in the morning on January 8th with his black Lexus backing into the garage, okay? So you can't see what's happening in the garage, but he backs it into the garage and then takes off. Instead of going to work, leaves the two older children home, takes the 4-year-old with him, and is telling people that he was going to the beach without his phone and comes back 11 and a half hours later. That, to me, is a very wild, crazy kind of story. You don't do something like that. It's not normal.
Yeah, I agree with you, Benny. It's not something that's ordinary. It's not something that's normal. And it certainly provides significant circumstantial evidence for the prosecution to use. And certainly it's a portion of what led to his ultimate indictment in this case. Benny, I mean, on the other hand, the prosecution is going to have to deal with the fact, and I know their investigation is ongoing, but they're certainly going to have to deal with the fact that they haven't recovered a body yet. And so that certainly, is something that, they're going to have to address and deal with and figure out how to demonstrate through the circumstantial evidence, as you mentioned, that Larry is guilty of this crime.
Yeah, let's go through, Michael Bixon, I'll go through some more of these strange circumstances. And, to me, it doesn't make sense, but some defense attorney is going to explain it inside a courtroom if and when there's a trial here. So you've got her last call is on the 7th, where she calls for the divorce attorney. He apparently knows because they have communications from him where he's talking about Maya getting serious. She's serious. She's going to get a divorce that he informs his boss. Then I want you to comment on these two things. You've got on January 7th, again, this is the last communication from her is around 8:15. She sends a message to her family. At 9:57 that night, Michael, there's a video they have, surveillance video from a neighbor, where you hear these loud bangs. They had experts from the FBI listen to it, try to break it down. They could not determine what the noise was, but loud bangs at 9:57. And then at 10:34, all the kids, okay, we're talking about young kids, the youngest is 4, neighbors say they're in the backyard playing, making noise. Who puts the kids in the backyard 10:30 at night and then wakes up the youngest at 6 o'clock in the morning to go to the beach for 11 and a half hours? Makes no sense to me, Michael.
No, absolutely. And don't get me wrong, look, it's circumstantial at the end of the day, but it's powerful circumstantial evidence. I mean, you put this in front of a jury, and they're really going to question what was going on here. This is not what normal people do. You know, letting the kids play out at night, taking them to the beach the next day without the phone. I mean, everything around here raises question marks. And if you're a defense attorney, they're not the kind of question marks that you want. So, I mean, while it is circumstantial, it is really, really not good for the defense.
Now, the other part of this, and that they laid out very well, was proof of life. And this might be one of the reasons there's been a delay in bringing these charges, because they found out a lot of this stuff pretty early on. But now it's been 9 months, and they say in 9 months, no withdrawals from any accounts. All her valuables, all the family cars were all at the house. The only thing that was missing was her phone. Somehow her phone disappeared. But everything else is in place, and there's been no one has seen her, no one has heard from her, and she just, stops communicating after 8:15, which is like 2 hours before the loud bangs. She sends a Facebook message to her family. Again, these are circumstances that prosecutors are going to have to rely upon, because at this point, we don't know exactly how she was killed.
Well, and what about the kids? You loved your kid. I mean, that's going to be the most compelling, proof of life or lack of life evidence. She would not abandon those children. It's just like the Susan Cox Powell case. She had a 2-year-old and a 4-year-old. Josh Powell said he took them camping at midnight in a snowstorm. When he came back, his wife was missing. Oh, guess what else was missing? Her phone, just like in this case. So, I mean, all of that evidence is so compelling, but especially she wouldn't leave. And I think a jury's going to agree that it's a no-body case. You can win no-body cases. She's no longer alive.
All right, we're going to talk more about this a little bit later on in the program. Again, the headline, Larry Miliete under arrest, will be arraigned on Thursday, charged with the murder of his wife, Maya Miliete. When we come back, okay, big trial here on Court TV. The 3 men accused of murdering Ahmaud Arbery in southeast Georgia. The latest in jury selection, a live report from Julia Janae, next. Welcome back. Big trial here on Court TV. Our cameras inside the courtroom down in Brunswick, Georgia. It's for the 3 men accused of the murder of Ahmaud Arbery. Ahmaud Arbery, a young man who was literally running for his life, running through a neighborhood when he was followed and pursued by 3 men in 2 pickup trucks. Let me show you a picture of these 3 guys. They're the defendants. Travis McMichael, Gregory McMichael, and William Roddy Bryant. They are going to claim citizen's arrest and self-defense during this trial. They've been held without bond since their arrest, and jury selection underway. Let's check in with Court TV legal correspondent Julie Janae, who's in Brunswick, Georgia tonight. What is the latest in jury selection? Have we qualified any jurors to get to the next stage of jury selection?
Vinny, we've qualified at least 8 potential jurors who will move on to the next round, but that means the majority of the ones today in that pool of 20 were dismissed either for cause or by agreement of the parties, and another 20 is coming back to the courthouse tomorrow. Today, things moved a bit slower than was expected by the court because they thought they were going to clear 40 potential jurors today, but they only got to that first pool of 20. So another 20 were sent home and will come back at a different time. Here's a bit of the numbers as far as that first round of questioning from these attorneys for the pool. They were asked questions about their negative feelings about Travis McMichael. 4 raised their hand, at least 4. At least 3 said they had a negative feeling about Greg McMichael, and at least 2 said that they had those feelings about the third defendant, William Roddy Bryan. On some social justice issues, 6 said that they support the Black Lives Matter movement. 1 said they felt that at some point in their lifetime, they feel that they've been denied an opportunity based on race, ethnicity, or gender. And 5 people in that 20-person pool agree that people of color are treated differently by the criminal justice system. So again, that's when you're asking that pool of 20 to raise their hands, yes or no. Then after the individual questioning, they are looking to get to a pool of 64 qualified jurors. And here's the math on that breakdown. We want a panel of 12 plus 4 alternates, so 16 jurors, and the defense will get 24 strikes, 8 per defendant. The state gets 12, and then each side gets 3 strikes per alternate. The McMichaels are going to share their alternates, so a total of 64. If there are 64 that can be qualified, then they can start using their peremptories, but we have a ways to go.
So is that 8 total in 2 days?
That is 8 total in 2 days. Yes, we did not have any who passed through to the next round yesterday.
Okay.
So what we were able to clear today as far as the court, that is where we stand.
Okay. So, if they stay at this pace, it's like 16 days of jury selection. So they're going to have to pick up the pace a little bit. Now, Travis McMichael today was identified as being in the Coast Guard. How did that come about, and what impact did that have on everything today?
This is something the prosecution objected to. They wanted to clear out that entire group of 20 potential jurors, saying that they had been prejudiced by the way the defense attorney, Jason Sheffield, introduced his client. Take a look.
Let me begin with, now that we've been sitting here for a little bit of time, Travis McMichael, formerly with the Coast Guard, formerly with Mets and Marine. As you sit here now and listen to this, did any of you recognize Travis?
Prosecution had an issue with him being identified as someone in the Coast Guard, having that military background, saying that that wasn't necessary to tell these potential jurors about that part of his background. It has been an issue that was argued over in the pretrial stage of this, because we know the defense wanted to introduce his Coast Guard background and his commendations as evidence of good character, something that isn't often allowed and may likely not come in this trial unless the door is open in some kind of way. But this is the way that the defense attorney is able to tell this potential jury. But he said it is common to introduce people based on their employment in order to let these jurors know, hey, do you recognize them? You may be familiar with people in the Coast Guard, have friends, or have worked with Coast Guard members before. The judge said that is typical, and he denied that motion from the prosecution to clear those potential jurors.
Okay, and what's happening outside of the courtroom today, outside of the courthouse?
Well, outside, they really have it set up where people who are here supporting can sit and be together. It almost looks like more of a group. Now, what we're seeing here is actually a tent that allows the defense to go in without being talked to or approached by any of the media. So that's what we saw this morning, was the defendants being shuffled in through there before anyone could really get a look at them. But also outside of the courthouse, we've seen the family of Ahmaud Arbery being surrounded by members of this community, people who have traveled here. You see there the Transformative Justice Coalition who brought these people in. They have been here front and center across the front door of the courthouse. They are all sitting today in chairs having conversations about different topics. And you see there in the middle, the father of Ahmaud Arbery, Marcus Arbery, sitting next to his aunt, Diane Jackson. Also today, these demonstrators traveled to Satilla Shores. They took a bus, and a large group of them, there were dozens, who were there in front of the house where Ahmaud Arbery was chased and then killed by the three defendants. I believe we have some video of Satilla Shores and those protesters who were there, along with the, you see there, that is in front of those homes, that street where everything happened. So they have not been afraid to take this march and take this call for justice all the way to that neighborhood where they say there was a culture of racism.
All right, let's, Julie J., stand by. Let's get some reaction from our think tank still with us, Michael Bixon, Ann Bremner, and Michael Sterling. Ann Bremner, let me start with you. The old Coast Guard trick, is that fair?
I guess. I mean, there's a case in Washington State v. Sargent that says someone in uniform opened their character just by wearing the uniform on the stand and talking about their history in the military. I mean, it is what it is, and the prosecutor's right. I mean, it's basically character evidence. On the other hand, maybe someone knew him from the Coast Guard, from way back when. I don't like it, but it's okay, and I think the judge said it was okay.
Michael Sterling, give me some perspective tonight. You live in Georgia. How important is this trial?
I think it's extremely important, Vinny. But what I think is most important is that the trial gets tried in the courtroom, that it gets tried between the lines, that we get down to the facts, and we get away with all of the superfluous, things that are happening outside the trial. Certainly respect people's First Amendment rights, their right to protest, people's right to be heard. But I think what's going to be important is the questions that come up that are fact-based about the killing of Ahmaud Arbery. What gave you the right to chase him? What gave you the right to consider him a burglar? What did he do that gave you this suspicion? And whether or not, Ahmaud Arbery was obviously unarmed. We know that. Travis McMichael came at him with a shotgun. Why did you come at him with a shotgun? All of these questions are going to have to be answered. What were you doing chasing him? Did you have a preconceived, a predisposed notion about African Americans and how you perceive them as criminals or thugs? All of these things are going to come out at trial, and we have to try the case between the lines. What the McMichaels and what Roddy Bryant was thinking at this time, what they were doing, what their actions led to. And whether or not that gets us to felony murder.
Michael Bixon, 3 defendants. That means 3 sets of defense attorneys. How does that work? You guys work together? Do you each have your own agenda? How is that going to play? And who gets an advantage from that? Does the defense get an advantage because you got more attorneys on that side, more bites of the apple? Or does the prosecution, because now they look like they're kind of working together?
Well, don't get me wrong. I mean, you might have 3 defendants, but at the end of the day, there's an entire DA's office. So in terms of resources and power, it's always the ADAs who have more. Now, in terms of their strategy, it really depends on case-to-case basis. I mean, I've done cases where it's every man for himself, where there might be, 2 or 3 that sort of group up together, depending on whether or not the facts and law are in their favor more, if they sort of come together, and others where everyone sort of works together. And I think in a case like this, you definitely see them working more, especially the father and son, the McMichaels, working together in this. And I do believe that it's more of a united front than you might see in other cases.
Ann Bremner, as we get into this trial, we know about the 37-second video. There's purportedly more video that Roddy Bryant shot. There's the body cam video, all of that. How much of this case, though, comes down to those 37 seconds? I mean, is it enough? Is it going to be difficult for the jury to look past this video to try to get it, to try to mold their interpretation of what they're seeing? Because most of America that's seen this video, not happy with it, right? They're not seeing a citizen's arrest. They're not seeing self-defense. Do you think it's possible, though, that a jury could see a citizen's arrest, could see self-defense in that video?
It's like Yogi Berra said, Vinny, deja vu all over again. I mean, it's like the Derek Chauvin trial. Could the jury get past the video they saw? on the knee and the neck and the back of George Floyd. How do you get past this video? I mean, they're celebratory. I mean, they're acting like, this was all not fun, but something that was just justified, and that the people would they look proud. I mean, I can't think of the right word for it, but they're gloating. And so I don't know how you get past that. I really don't. And a citizen's arrest for what? I mean, you don't use deadly force for a citizen's arrest for suspected thefts, which didn't occur, by the way. No, but you just can't.
Let's bring back in Julie Janae, get a look at what's ahead tomorrow down in Brunswick.
Vinny, another pool of 20 potential jurors are coming here to the courthouse. They will start out with those general questions to the entire panel, and then they'll move into the individual questions. We'll see how many more we get qualified tomorrow.
All right, Julie Janae in Brunswick, big case, starts again tomorrow morning. Meanwhile, still ahead. On the docket tonight in Brooklyn Center, Minnesota, the shooting death of Dante Wright. Tonight, we take a closer look at what happened when former officer Kim Potter yelled taser but fired her service weapon. Plus, Brian Laundrie's family being harassed by protesters reminds us a lot of what happened to George and Cindy Anthony 13 years ago in Orlando, Florida. Tonight's 13th juror question: what would you do if your child was being investigated in a murder case? Go to our Facebook pages and let us know. On the docket tonight, a case that really started in the middle of the trial of Derek Chauvin, the man who was convicted of murdering George Floyd. It involves a now former police officer. Take a look. Her name is Kim Potter. This is her booking photo. She was part of a motor vehicle stop and went, I think, to grab her taser and is yelling taser, 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 but it has her service weapon in her hand and shoots and kills Dante Wright. We have a picture of Dante as well I want to show you. There's Dante Wright, shot and killed. Young man, motor vehicle stop. Doesn't make a lot of sense to a lot of people. And we're going to show you exactly what happened. It's 58 seconds of video. It is graphic in nature, but it's what happened. And it's what Kim Potter did, and it's what happened to Dante Wright, and it's what this trial will be all about. Let's watch. So the question for the jury is going to be, what did we just see? Did we just see an accident, or did we just witness a crime? Let's bring back in our think tank. Michael Sterling, I'll begin with you. What did you see in those 57 seconds?
I saw a crime, Vinny. I saw an officer who has been trained 2 months prior to this particular incident, specifically took 2 trainings regarding taser. I saw an officer who didn't cross draw, which is what officers are taught with their taser. Officers are taught to bring your taser and your gun into your line of sight. Taser's yellow, gun is black. So I saw an officer shoot Dante Wright because he was resisting arrest.
And Bremner, what did you see?
I saw a crime too, but I saw manslaughter. I mean, I don't know that she was intentionally executing I almost always agree with Michael, but here I think I'd be on more in the manslaughter. I think that she's yelling taser, taser, taser. I don't know what snapped in her brain, but to do this. But she clearly made a mistake. But that mistake is negligence, and it's negligent homicide, and it's manslaughter at a minimum. It's a crime.
Michael Bixon?
I'm inclined to agree. I think it's more along the lines of manslaughter. And it's a really tough call between accident or reckless or something like that. There's a very fine line. From what I saw in the video, it definitely looks more along the lines of accidental. Obviously, the outcome is like atrocious and it's terrible. But I think it's something more along the lines of manslaughter.
Okay, so where is that line, Michael? And I'll start with you. Where is the line between I did something really dumb, I did something really stupid? It's like car accidents, right? We know that they're accidents. People aren't purposely most of the time trying to get into an accident, but there are times when car accidents become crimes. So what is it in our law that takes something that is not intentional and is accidental and shifts it from, okay, yeah, you made a mistake, you're liable civilly for damages, versus you've committed a crime and you need to have your liberty taken away because of this mistake that you made that is a mistake that has crossed over from accident world into criminal world?
Well, it depends.
I said Michael, and we have two Michaels. Why did I do that? I'll start with Michael Bixon, and then Michael Sterling, just follow him right up.
Sure.
So it really depends on the language of the statute. And every state is going to have different wording of the statutes depending on, you're talking about manslaughter, murder, and so on. If you're talking about something that's more reckless conduct, usually you're talking about some type of really negligent act. And the line between, and this is part of the problem, the line between negligence and just an accident is very, very thin. On a case like this, obviously, you're looking at it. I do think it goes more towards the accidental side, but again, you leave it up to a group of jurors, and they could interpret it entirely differently.
Michael Sterling.
Yeah, Benny, I think it depends on the situation and circumstances. I mean, to use your example, a car accident, and someone is at a bar, 30 minutes before, and they have, 10 shots, and then they get in a car. They're trying to get home, but they cause an accident. Obviously, those acts, what they did, rise to the level of recklessness, right? Just to use that as an example, if someone is trained and it was trained 2 months prior in how to use a taser, if they know the difference between the weight and size of a gun and a taser, if they know the difference between the color, if they know the difference between a cross draw, then obviously those circumstances will affect. So what would a reasonable officer have done? What would a reasonable officer have known? What would have been the actions of someone who had her particular training, her particular experience, her particular expertise in knowing the difference? That will instruct the jury on whether or not the acts rise to negligence or recklessness.
And Bradner, you've represented a lot of police officers. Do you think this former officer has to take the stand to explain to the jury what happened in that video, or do they just rely upon the video to try to convince the jury that it's a horrible, horrible accident?
Well, I think she has to take the stand, and please ignore my cat in the background. The kitten just came to visit, sorry. He was sleeping earlier, I swear. But I think she does. I mean, I think that she's got to say what was in her mind, because that video it just doesn't help her. It doesn't help her. We've seen it, just like we've seen in the Arbery case, or even the Derek Chauvin case, a video that the jury's going to look at and say, the more you explain it, the less I understand it. This is criminal.
Okay, folks, we have a trial date. Take a look. Coming up, November 30th, Minnesota versus Kim Potter. We'll continue to track it right here on your front row seat to justice. When we come back, time to hear from you, our 13th juror. And we're going to talk about what's happening down at the home of Brian Laundrie's parents. Protesters have been down there. They get kind of loud. They put up signs. They make noise. Reminds me of a scene years ago down in Orlando, Florida, involving a couple named George and Cindy, who had a daughter whose name I will not mention. But the two scenarios kind of remind me of one another. Your reaction to all that, and my question: what would you do if your child was the subject of a murder investigation. Your verdict next. This is no longer the search for missing children. This is the search for killers.
This stretches just so beyond what anyone could imagine.
Breaking news in the case against doomsday prophet Chad Daybell.
Prosecutors say they will seek the death penalty against him.
Investigators have recovered human remains at Chad Daybell's residence.
There's no way, Logan. I could never come up with this.
Lori was his follower. Chad Daybell's the prophet.
Chad had a vision, plagues, and foreign troops coming to the soil.
Will his wife, Lori Daybell, turn on him?
It's just so hard to know where the truth ends.
All eyes on this Idaho trial.
Big ruling by the judge. The venue changed.
The further away you can get from the scene of the alleged incident, the better off you are.
Think about all the people that had to die and disappear. It's the doomsday prophet Chad Daybell on trial. There's Brian Laundrie's parents. Every time they come in and out of the house, when there's protesters out there, they're being yelled at. People are making signs. They're leaving laundry baskets. You know the scene down there. It's not pretty. It's not pretty for Laundrie's parents, and a lot of people very, very angry with them. And for me, who's been covering stories like this for quite some time, reminds me of what happened years ago. You may recall down in Orlando, Florida, George and Cindy Anthony confronting protesters outside their house. Remember this with the hose? Unbelievable. Get off my lawn. There you go. Unbelievable. It was a very similar scene. I will say it was at times a little more intense down in Orlando. You haven't seen any confrontations with the Laundries. They're kind of just walking in and trying to ignore it. But same sort of scene. So they're kind of in the same position. I mean, at that point, George and Cindy and the Laundrie parents, they've got children who are in the middle of a murder investigation. And I asked you, what would you do if your child was the subject or part of a ongoing murder investigation? We begin with our 13th juror comment of the day, coming to us from Tamara. She says, I don't think I would talk to the press for many reasons. However, I would cooperate with law enforcement, as heartbreaking as it would be, especially in a situation such as this. I couldn't do that to the parents of my son's fiancée, especially if I truly cared for her, even though it would kill me to admit my son committed such a horrible crime. And Bremner, I don't blame the parents for what happened, but people are angry with them because of the silence. And it was the silence
Right.
when Gabby was missing.
Well, exactly. And it's like that Mark Twain quote, and it's always do right. It'll gratify some and astonish the rest. They have to do the right thing. She lived with them. She was going to marry their son. Cooperate with law enforcement, like Tamara said. I mean, that is the right thing to do.
Carol, tonight, I would be devastated. People should leave them alone. These people are in mourning and deep pain for their son. Leave them alone, you nosy, pestering, biased people. What happens if he didn't do it? Michael Sterling, what do you think about Carol's position on all of this?
I don't necessarily agree with the tenor and tone of it, but I agree with the overall premise. I think the parents should have some leeway. We don't know if they know anything at all. We don't know if they have anything to cooperate with law enforcement about. They don't know where their son is. They reported him missing. We don't know if they have any information about what happened. And they have a lawyer who represents them, who can speak with law enforcement and negotiate on their behalf, which is something that any lawyer would recommend that someone does in that particular circumstance. So, we just don't know. I think we should have at least some empathy for them. They're not responsible for anything that happened, and we don't know if they know anything.
Michelle, tonight, not go camping with him while his girlfriend is out west somewhere without her vehicle. Michael Bixon, we have about 15 seconds, but that's really the genesis of everyone's anger with the parents.
Yeah, and obviously it's disturbing when there's somebody missing and they're going to go out camping with them. I definitely think that the look of it was very bad, and I can definitely understand the anger from a lot of people for something like that happening.
Look at that. He hit it right at 15 seconds. Michael Bixon, amazing job as always. Ann Bremner, Michael Sterling as well. Great to have you all on the program. Really appreciate it. We'll see you again really soon. When we come back, we're going to go back to that big breaking news